So the most relevant question isn't what is non-duality about, or what are these talks about, or trying to understand anything I say. The most relevant question is who is speaking and who is listening. It's not really about intellectual correctness or a correctness in ideas, because ideas are something that move. Now, what does that mean? That's really weird. But when I present an intellectual idea, it's gone. So I could say, all there is this. And it's actually the very sounds of all there is this, rather than the meaning of all there is this. So all there is this is really directly pointing to what is. It's not an actual intellectual idea that needs to be taken on. This is so mysterious and so beautiful, this question. Who is talking and who is listening? And this is absolute freedom. This point, not the intellectual concept, but the pointing back to what's actually happening. The pointing back to this silence, this emptiness, this freefall. Not what I mean by anything I say. Actually, anything I say can be contradicted and argued. And sometimes when it's a question that comes from intellectual argument, I'm really not interested in answering it. You can tell the difference energetically, because it really doesn't matter. Actually, maybe a lot of people here have more intelligent brains who could maybe present non-duality in a better way. But that's actually what complete opposite to what I'm talking about. You could say this in the most poetic or correct language or nearest language, but actually what I'm pointing to is the direct stillness or emptiness that's already here, which everything is. That's it actually, everything is. But I'm going to say appearing from because it's slightly easier. So these sounds to a mind might look like they're coming from Lisa, or coming from time, or coming from a body. But when that mind begins to crumble, actually these sounds are coming from emptiness, or everything. They both mean the same thing, everything and emptiness. That's crazy. That's so crazy and so beautiful, because if that's the way it is, it's not even if, there's no doubt here, then this is not a divided reality. And if this isn't a divided reality, then every sound, every sight, every touch, every sensation possible, every thought, every feeling, is you knowing yourself. Not an intellectual knowing yourself, but by its very appearance is you knowing itself. Wow. Can you guys hear at the back?
We can.
Yeah? It comes through?
It does. Loud and clear.
So who's listening to me? So I'm going to contradict myself in language, because I'm going to call me the absolute, and I'm going to call me the body as well. So sometimes I'm contradicting myself, but just ask if you need clarification of who I'm talking about. But both get called me. Language. Hey. Welcome. You just missed the best bit.
I think now you can feel better.
Here.
Oh, thanks.
So who hears these sounds? Who sees the movement? This is directly pointing to that nobody is experiencing this. There is not somebody experiencing life. If there's somebody experiencing life, then this is a divided world. But your true nature is that stillness that everything appears in, not the movement of the character. Although in this apparent world, it's seen through the character is used as a porthole to see this. It's used as the goggles into seeing this reality, as if you've got goggles on underwater or something, or light goggles, or night goggles. But it's not who you are, the character. The character is something that is changing and moving in this. The character is who you are in the sense of everything is who you are, but it's not your limitation, it's not your container. Who you are is the stillness that everything appears from. Who you are is that which never dies, which is always here, and everything is moving in. And it's even more intimate than moving in. Everything is that, but... oh well. You can't have it moving in it, but we just say that. What would it be moving in? I know it seems in the world of the dream that you come here, you pay money and you hear non-duality, but that's really not how it's happening. That is just the apparent story. This is you reminding you. This is stillness reminding itself that it was never the limitations of the character. It was always that boundlessness in which it appears in. So this isn't me speaking outside of you. So this is nothing that you can buy. This is nothing you can get or barter from another in the world of things. Even though that seems to be the way it's set up. But it's really not like that. This is your essence, and it's directly here. It's so intimate and direct that it's the very sounds that are coming out of this apparent body. It's the fan, the movement of the air, the sight of the fan, the colours of the cup. And this is where the love side comes in, because you're not in there looking at the world, you're right here in the colour. You're right here in the movement. And this body is just being used as apparent reminder. But there's nothing that actually needs to be reminded. And I'm not reminding a character in time. The character inside is not a perceiver in any way, it's an experience. It doesn't ever experience anything. It is an experience. This is so funny being up here. It's like one of those Buddhist masters.
Levitating.
Yeah. They sit with their legs crossed, although I can't cross my legs properly because of the tightness of the jeans. Oh. Ooh. So this is still, you know that, not you as the character. This is empty and so full and in love because of its intimacy. But you know this because it is you, but not you as anything you imagine. Not you as anything which is moving. And what I mean by moving is everything, every thought, every sensation, every feeling, every idea, emotion. But yet on the same side, that is all you too, but not any particular thing. What a subject. This isn't about improving the character or stopping problems. Problems are such a natural part of this movement, or making anything perfect. One of my favorite stories in Buddhism was this story of, excuse me if I get the names wrong, but I think his name was Aratnagona or something. And he was a murderer, and he lived in a forest. And people avoided this forest because every time somebody walked through there, he would murder them, chop off their little finger and put the finger around his neck on a necklace. And he had 99 fingers, and he wanted to get to 100. And the Buddha decided to walk through the forest. And everyone was saying, no, don't walk through there, he'll kill you. And he walks through the forest and he sees Aratnagona, and Aratnagona starts chasing him to kill him. But after some time, he just cannot catch up with the Buddha. No matter how fast he runs, he can't catch the Buddha. And he says, eventually, slow down. I want to catch up with you, just slow down. And the Buddha says, I'm absolutely still. It's you that's moving too fast. And apparently in that moment, Aratnagona woke up. Then he got stoned to death by society. I never got that. I used to think that was a stupid story. I thought the Buddha had stopped time or something. So he'd created a portal. So if anyone thinks of any questions, I think that might be the end of the introduction, but maybe more will come. If a question comes, then go for it.
Well, I've always had this question because I was listening to a lot of non-duality videos, and when people talk about an awakening, they always say that there's no you in the awakening.
Yeah.
But then how is it when they come back in practical world, how are they able to articulate it if there was no you in that process?
I know, it's really mysterious. I can't really give you an intellectually satisfying answer. But right now, who's listening to Lisa? I'm sorry that I'm talking about myself in the third person, but just so we don't get confusing, we'll just call her Lisa. Confused. Oh. It's already starting. But who's listening to Lisa? Does the character listen?
Right now, you're asking me?
Yeah.
Right now, it's the character.
You think the character listens?
Oh, no, this is my impression.
Impression,
right now.
yeah. Yeah, but so in the experience, it seems like the character listens. But how is that possible in the direct experience? And I'm not saying for you to just switch over to believing me. This has got to be experiential there. And that's what this conversation's about, is trying to remember that the listener was always the silence. The listener was always the emptiness. So who hears this in this direct experience? Who's hearing? And if you feel still like saying the character, that's really okay. This isn't a wrong right. This is what I do with people.
Just the body.
You think in this direct moment?
In this moment?
In this moment? So the thought comes up, it's my body that's listening. And then who knows that, or who registers that?
Who knows that? I don't.
You think that a body listens to it? To the idea that comes up and says it's my body that listens?
You mean the original source? I don't know.
It's
I can't say it's the body, I just don't know.
Yeah. I don't know is such a great answer. So in a dream at night, when we dream, we often dream as if we're looking through this particular body. So in Lisa's dreams, or my dreams, it will be through this particular body, and I'll experience the dream as if I'm looking through this body, as if I'm this body. And I'll walk through the dream looking like I do in this world. And I'll touch things and see things and do things. And is it ever the Lisa character in the dream that hears or looks or touches or feels?
No.
It's an experience, right?
Right.
That's exactly how it's happening here. That body is an experience. It's not the actual source of experiencing.
What tripped me a little bit is that in a dream here everything is so structured, whereas in a dream it's a lot more spontaneous and...
Only when you wake up in the morning, in the comparison. In the dream it seems like it's really structured. You don't notice in the dream that bits are missing. And can you remember walking up here? Or the elevator ride up here? There's so much missing.
Right.
But it gives the appearance that it's really solid and really real. But actually, the way out of it isn't in thinking of it, it's in the direct experience. In the direct experience, this is being experienced by nobody. And there's not a limitation anywhere inside that body or anywhere of where you are. The character arises in this dream or in this as an experience. So this is why you can never say that somebody awakens, because who would awaken? It's just the energy changes back from this focus on I'm a character moving in time, I'm a separate individual, to boundlessness. But it's not that the character awakens, because it was always boundlessness that was experiencing the character. It's just a movement of focus or energy, not even focus. It just moves back to that emptiness, that boundlessness, rather than I am this narrow person. We always feel like that it's so close to the one that's saying, I choose to go shopping, or I'm going to go shopping, or I'm not going to go shopping. And we feel like that movement is who we are. But that movement is an experience in boundlessness. So nobody can awaken. We can describe bodies that we say, but there's no fine line. You can't, there's never a fine line. You can't certify awakening and this is person's awakened now and that's the way it is and that's for good. There's no like definite, but you could say that that a body's no longer, there's no longer identification in that body or something, but it's really limited because it's not the body that wakes up, because the body's an experience. But we could say in communication something like that, but it's really a load of nonsense. You could maybe limitly say it, like the body, the character no longer is identified, but that really means nothing because you were never the character in the first place. But there's also no fine line to it. To try and stamp a body as enlightened or not identified anymore is to go back into identification. But that's really confusing. I remember that. That's a really confusing part when you feel like it must be the character that wakes up. But it really isn't. You've never been the character. Who's looking at me now? Who's hearing me now? It's not the character.
So it seems like there's still a need for practice, even though there's nobody here to practice. There's still, because the identification with the body and with the story still comes back in, and then it's recognized that that's just another appearance.
Yeah.
But that recognition, it seems like, is helps to practice that almost. Not, just practice for finding it.
Well, there's never been a thing as practice ultimately. It's always been movement of energy, and everything you could say is practice, or there's no practice. And that's absolutely perfect if that feeling or thought's coming up to say to practice that, because it's never been you practicing it. Some speakers like to say that that practice or any of these things keep you trapped in the illusion of self. But for that to be true, the opposite has to be true. And they'll also deny that they can lead you out of the illusion of self. So if they're saying that a teacher or a practice traps you, they're also saying there's a possibility that they could lead you out from that trap, because it's implying that something separate is affecting you. So there's nothing wrong with the idea of practice at all. If that comes up and there's an idea to practice something that I say, or it's never you doing it. There's never anybody doing it. It's an absolute illusion that practice belonged to someone anyway. So if it comes up to practice, that's perfect. And also if it doesn't, that's perfect as well. It's not that it's better, that's a weird way of looking at it. It's the urges. So if there's an urge to come up to meditate or to practice, then that's the perfection there. But it's never somebody practicing. And it certainly doesn't keep you trapped, because then that would also mean that something could untrap you. It's both in land of la-la.
So the recognition of what I am, of just I amness, or just awareness not separate from the world,
isn't enough.
What do you mean?
It isn't enough, the recognition. That doesn't change anything necessarily.
Right.
It could be really profound, but it's a lot of the time, I don't know if the recognition, it's not even a beginning, there's no beginning, but that recognition, there will still be the energy which is sucking you back into personal stories. But the recognition, I know I say it, but I'm always responding to who I'm speaking to. So, like, you can always forget what I said until I'm saying it in the moment. But the recognition is even deeper than I amness or awareness. It's absolute emptiness. So I amness and awareness are both empty, and that's the main point. But after that, there might still be the sucking into the illusory person. So there will still be the game of suffering, of feeling like you're bound, even though that sense might be known by no one so deeply that that energy still might be going into separation. That will wear itself out by itself, but it's not the end. It's not the end of suffering. Often that waking up then works or then there's some energy that has to play out that keeps sucking into that illusion. And it sometimes feels like that's a bit of a schizophrenic place, because there's boundlessness and then there's suddenly responding to life like you're an individual again, and then boundlessness, and it's very confusing. But it's definitely that energetic movement, but you will never know the fine. You'll never ever get to a position where you think you're awakened or it's gone, the illusion of self, because when you get to that place, you can be sure that you're still dreaming. Because who would have that? You can't ever know yourself. There is life, and life is empty and full simultaneously, and whether it creates someone or not is irrelevant and not something that it can know, because the quality of emptiness isn't knowing in a limited story. It creates limited stories. So as that energy moves back to boundlessness, you never know it might be the most profound, liberated body, but it will never know that. Isn't that beautiful? So humble. Like a bird or a dog. So wanting to be enlightened or wanting to find that line of liberation is just that it's a game. There's just more and more of a dissolving. Apparently. You've got to slip that one in.
There's your one.
Thanks.
Upgrade.
Yeah.
You just used the word humbling.
Yeah. Did I use it again?
I just heard it, yeah. I love it. I was wondering if you could say a little bit what you mean by that, or if something is humbling. As a person, the person is fixated on the idea that it knows things,
and it knows better most of the time than life, and that it can comprehend it in its limited language and limited thinking system, and then it can imply something better, it can put into movement something better. And in a relative sense, that's true, the ability to make phones and apartment buildings this big, but ultimately the nature of everything is innocence. And as that energy changes back more, it's humbling for the character, like it's humbling in the character. Everything that character fought for and tried to establish, this is what I am, I'm a good person, I'm a right person, I'm a better person, or I'm a kind person, or a compassionate person. As the energy moves, the character becomes more humble, begins to realize the grandness of this.
Say something about that word innocence?
Yeah?
That you just used?
So the creation of this isn't being created consciously, it's being created innocently. In this creation, it creates the idea of consciously creating. But its nature is innocence, and it's spontaneously creating in every moment. But it doesn't have an agenda, it doesn't have a goal, it has nothing. Your essence has no quality, it creates qualities.
cause and effect?
Just in relative language, it's useful, but no, you'll never find the beginning to anything. You can never find where one thing starts and another thing ends. Just limitedly in language, we can say, pass us the chocolates or something, and then the chocolates are passed. But at what point does that begin? You had to have a body. Your parents had to meet. Your grandparents had to meet. There had to be a big bang. Ultimately, cause and effect is just a human invention to be able to use, well, to be able to communicate and produce things. It's never a reality, but we've got lost in that and believed it to be a reality. So the biggest thing that we really believe is my unhappiness is effect of you. Most of the time the biggest struggle in this dreamland of the character is the other. It's mostly... I once worked with this lady who had 3 kids. She had one... Can you hear me at the back? Yes. She had one that was autistic and 2 that weren't autistic. And every time I talked with her, she only ever complained about her husband and the 2 other kids. And when I asked her about the 3rd kid and said, why do you never complain about this kid? She said, because he couldn't be any different. So she only ever mentally suffered over the kids that she imagined and the husband that could be different. So most of the time in cause and effect, we're looking at, you've caused my unhappiness, and I need to change you, and you need to change to make me more happy. No. But this is such a narrow concept, cause and effect. And we suffer over an imagination. We suffer over, we made up the idea that this affects that, and then we suffer over that intensely as characters. This game of trying to change the environment. I'm not saying that the environment doesn't get changed, but this idea that we act independently from life, that you could possibly in a moment make an independent choice, where really your choice stems back all the way to the Big Bang, which is love. That's the love side of this, that your choice is an effect of who you truly are, and that's everything. Even in my limited language, I'm saying your choice is an effect. It's the way we speak, but your choice touches everything. For the only reason that you never will find the beginning or the end to anything. So in the flow of things, life is always reflecting back oneness, even in the flow of things, because everything's circular. That's so beautiful. Well, it's not beautiful on the idea of free will, because that's very painful to the idea of free will. Relatively, the human seems to choose. Like it works in, I'm going to choose to drink my drink, or not now, but it works like that. But it's seeing that that's just the play of things. It's not the actuality. The true play of things is that everything is spontaneously appearing from nothingness or emptiness. And that in the world of the movement, it always flows, even though this isn't a result of movement. This is a result of stillness. This hasn't come from the past. It's always stillness, and in stillness there's the appearance of movement. We look at it like this is a result of where we've come from. But actually this is a result of nothing or stillness, and in stillness movement appears. So the energy, this is energy constantly changing in stillness, giving the appearance that something happens. It's mind-blowing. It's really beautiful. And in the world of the movement, the way it has to go, because it's all one energy, is the energy is constantly changing from one thing to another to another. But the energy, the source of the energy is stillness, not more energy. It's really beautiful. So the energy is always moving one thing to another to another to another. But the movement seemingly is a result of everything else, but it's actually a result of stillness. Beautiful. But that's quite full on. I'm like, dag, dag, dag. Hang on. I get my gun out sometimes. My verbal gun, or my turkey. I always think the English sound like turkeys. Like, the turkey face. Not the Americans. The Americans don't sound like turkeys. Hey, Joey.
Hi. Oh.
Hey. Hi, how are you? Good, thanks.
I have a question. I mean, I get what you're saying, and from an intellectual standpoint, I really do buy it. You know, I believe we're just like trees, and, you know, without any life form, without awareness. But how, you know, so what? I know you're going to say there's nothing you can do, but how?
No, I never say that.
Oh.
No, to say there was nothing you could do would imply that there's somebody there that could not do something. So I always say that there's nobody there doing anything. There's movement happening. What was the thing that you said before?
Oh, I was going to say is, you know, I have a very, like, I have an intellectual understanding. I've read so many books. And,
yeah.
You know, I don't believe in dogmatism or, you know, anything with the story attached. I do really believe we're just like, you know, dogs and trees, and just with the self-awareness to create these stories.
Yeah.
Then once you've been so conditioned to believe that way, I mean, how can one sort of reach a more intuitive sense of what you're feeling?
I don't know what I'm feeling, but
or it just happens, it just dissolves, as you always say, it just dissolves.
Yeah, it's already coming from an upside down perspective that you've lived a life. So you're looking at it as if you've already lived a life. So when you ask the question, you see yourself as having lived a life, done things, and then you think that you can apply non-duality in that way, which is perfect. But then I just have to point you back to stillness again. So then I have to ask the question of who's hearing me speak. This is so profound. I'm not Lisa's words are profound, but non-duality. Who hears me in this moment? And the mind's going to come up, oh, this is hopeless. It's going to come up with all these things. But who sees that? Because its function, the mind, is to move. So it doesn't even care really what it's moving about, whether it's depressive or happy. It's to move into different thoughts. But who sees those thoughts? Who experiences those thoughts? That's not who you are, the one that says this is hopeless or how am I going to get there? It's appearing, it is who you are in the sense of everything, but it's not who you are in the sense of you aren't limited to any of these things. So who hears it? It says, this is hopeless, I won't get there, or how do I get there? And the whole time it's appearing in stillness. As stillness. Just seems like it's moving.
Can you articulate or clarify more when you say stillness? Can you elaborate on that?
Emptiness. Somebody asked me that the other day as well. And then they were like, can you elaborate on emptiness? And I was like, love. And they elaborate on that. And I was like, that's it. That's it. Because it's not something you can imagine. You can't imagine to look for this. It is who you are. As soon as you imagine it, there's movement happening. And you won't find it in a movement, and you'll find it in all movements simultaneously.
Lisa, so when dissolving happens for you, more dissolving happens, so it's happening, and is the...
For who?
For nobody.
For nobody.
Right. But nobody from whom it's happening, are you experiencing deeper stillness, or there is no deeper stillness because that's just a movement of the stillness? There is no deeper stillness for you.
I don't know really. This all gets very confusing.
You know what I mean? Okay.
Nobody can ever get to deeper stillness. It's an absolute lie that I even imply that everything isn't already liberated. But I don't want to claim to be anything.
But when dissolving happens, doesn't the appearance of that stillness, because it's sin now, whatever is sin is sin. So it seems like something bigger is happening, something larger is seen, that emptiness somehow.
But it's not seen by anyone because the seer is that stillness. It's just the clouds of the illusion begin to pass more.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's not seen by anyone.
Yeah.
It's seen by the stillness.
It's just that it
But,
shines through
but
more.
is the stillness bigger? Is it more of a stillness?
It
Are
can
you
seem
expect-
that way, yeah. But
Okay,
only
that's
from
what I mean.
only from the limitations of the story. But yeah, it can seem that way. Like as the identity dissolves,
Right.
it becomes more apparent the emptiness of this all.
Right.
But
But for you, that doesn't happen any longer?
this is a very confusing question, and I don't want to be anything.
Oh, I see. Not even emptiness or anything like that.
But I don't want to deny anything. I don't know what a permanent experience is anymore. That doesn't really make sense in this conversation. It would be easier if I just said yes or no, but
That makes sense. That makes sense. It's just
yeah.
there is nothing to be.
Yeah.
There is nobody.
But if
there is
identification-
no nothing. There is no identification.
But if
whatsoever.
identification comes, and it comes, I don't know what's going to come in the next moment. And I'm certainly not sitting in a position of being something permanent.
But when identification comes, that still will be happening within stillness, and it's very experiential.
I don't know. I don't even know what awakening is anymore. It all begins to get really confusing, and I'm really sorry that this body is the one that speaks about it. But as soon as you begin to ask about this, about this body's, but this experience, it begins to get really confusing. I don't want to in any way be a definite in any situation. So people that normally speak in my way tend to then say yes or no, it's definite, it's final, but you've got to remember that they're normally men, and I'm not saying anything against men. But it is a very different expression, I'm sorry. There's so few females speaking like this, and the females will not be, every female that I've met will not be. There's another one called Susan Foxton, and I really like her, and she will just always, when people ask about her experience, she'll say, I don't know, and I love it.
Wow. So it's really, you really don't know.
You really don't know. I don't know. I could be the most enlightened body there ever is, and I could be the most unenlightened. How would I possibly know that? But that doesn't make sense from the perspective of a person, to not know what you are.
But from perspective of stillness, don't stillness know what it is?
How could it know? It just is. How could it know? It creates knowing. How could it know what it is? But this makes no sense from a separate position in a dualistic language.
It doesn't know what it is, but it's a feeling of nobodiness, of nothingness, of it's just a feeling.
But
you know without knowing.
But
It's not knowing through the mind or anything like that. It's a knowing that is there. You know that presence is here. You know, I mean, like I feel presence right now. So presence is speaking, but I'm aware that presence is here. You know, I know. I don't know. I mean, it's not.
this is no, I'm joking when I say it's a male and female thing.
You know, it's a knowing without knowing that there is something, you know, that's moving, that's doing, that's being, that's speaking, that's listening, but no one, but yet someone without no one. I'm just curious if that sounds right to you. How does that sound to you?
I'm not sure. There is this, and this is so beautifully empty and full simultaneously, so it's absolute expression of love. But when you begin to talk about Lisa as a character, I don't know what she is.
Is there still a male and female?
Well, it depends in which world you talk in.
Or are there any separate worlds?
No. But we can speak relatively, and relatively this body is a female. And then in this instant, which is really all there ever is, It's just, who knows? We feel like we almost get somewhere and we're like, oh yeah, it's still nowhere. We almost got there. No. We realise we don't know.
So I have to deny my experience, you know? It's like I have to deny my experience.
Why?
When I listen to you, I deny my experience of who I am, who I know I am, and come to what you're saying, which I identify with also, you know, which I resonate with, but yet like I have to live this seeing that I know I am, and yet I have to leave it, to let go of it, to go a little bit further to something completely unknowable. But in my experience, I feel, you know, if I spoke to my experience, I would say, I mean, I know who I am. I know who I am in the sense that I am not this body, I'm not this mind, I'm not my thoughts, not my feelings, not anything, yet I am, you know. And I am is here, listening to you. And it's very real, you know, it's just here, you know. Yet somehow where you taking me is someplace even a little bit more, you know, I mean, to more nothingness, let's call it.
More nothingness.
Yeah, more.
So how do you know I am?
Or because how do I know this? Because when nothing exists, there is existence. There is me. That existence. When I don't believe in it, when I'm not believing in anything, I don't see anything, I don't know anything, I am. That's what's left. It's not like I create it. It's not like I'm doing something. It's not. That's just who I am. Without I am, you know.
And
that's my experience.
And who knows that right now? How is that known?
Nobody knows it. It's not someone that's going to know that.
That's it.
But
But just hang on. Let me.
Yeah.
Go. So right now.
Right.
How is I am known?
It's itself. It knows itself.
How?
If I spoke my experience,
And that's
I don't
exactly
know
what
how.
I want. You're right.
It's like, I don't know how. It's just knows. I don't know. I can't tell you how. It's not. There is no how. But yet, it's here.
And what? And how do you see I am? How is that seen?
How is that seen? It's not seen. You can't see it. It's here. It's just here without being here.
And what does that feel like?
Nothing. Emptiness.
It's not quite about the I am. Although that's really beautiful to see that you are nothing. Nothing that's moving.
Right.
And then there's I am left.
Right.
Actually, the way that you know yourself is not the I am, it's the appearance of everything.
It's not that. I know I am is the appearance.
And in a
of
way,
it.
this is more...
Well, nothing is appearing. I mean, in this I am, whatever feeling disappearing. It's not.
You know yourself not through the I am. The I am is just a very sweet and nice pointer. You know yourself by the colour of that cup. You know yourself by the smoothness of this wood, by the colours on this pillow. This is so intimate. And I am is such a beautiful pointer, but actually you know yourself by everything.
Okay, I don't know myself that way. Not like that.
Here you are.
I know it.
Here you are.
Right. I can see that because all there is that. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, it's all there is just that, the emptiness, and that's emptiness also.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No.
But yes, you're going to leave I am.
I have to leave I am.
But I sometimes speak about I am, but now I'm deciding not to. I'm like,
Okay.
"Duck, duck, duck, duck."
Okay, well that's great. 1 minute. Let me see now. So I.
But who do you think it's
I
great
leave
for?
the I am and
But-
I just become everything.
But who do you think it's great for?
Grateful?
Great for, you said that's great. Who do you think that's great for?
Oh, that's great.
Not grateful, but great for.
No, that's great. Just, I don't know. It's just.
And then one day somebody's going to ask you if you're liberated or not, and you'll be like, oh, what a question.
It's great. It's great for nobody.
Is it?
Yeah.
But this isn't meant to have answers to it. This is just meant to be like you're running over a toad. Being silly now. Oh, I promised you a coffee break. So if anyone has any questions.
So I'd like to ask you about the now. I mean, I understand that, be in the now. But it also seems that we have a past, that we're conditioned, et cetera, triangles all the way up. We've got conditioned negatively and whatever. Does that negativity that's still in our bodies have to be released before we can be liberated? I mean,
past
there's some
traumas.
teachers talk about, the body still holds X, Y, Z, and
Yeah.
whether you're liberated or
So
not.
you mean like traumas that are contained in the body?
Yeah.
No.
No,
Past pains? Nope.
in other words, you could slip right into a liberation with X, Y, Z, neuroses or whatever. That's a big one.
But it's never the body that gets liberated. It's never the character that gets liberated. It's the movement from being bound to that character to everything, and then the character still carries on and it's fucked up or non-fucked up, however you phrase it. Wait.
But does it still torment you in a way?
There's a little bit of creaking here, Perch. Do you think
I
that this
hear
is
that.
strong enough?
Yeah, it's okay.
That would be so funny if I broke the table.
You can pass with some body.
So where did we get to? Oh yeah. So the person, the movement of the person looks at the pains and thinks that's what the problem is because they hurt,
Yeah.
and it creates difficult relations. So you're difficult. There's conflict because one body mind mechanism has certain conditioning, and then another one. So say your wife, your dynamic might be to be angry quickly, and then the wife sulks about it. So you can see these things. So you think they're the problem, you can't really see them, but you think you can see them, something that's moving, so you think that's what the problem is. Actually, the problem is the energy that sucks in and says that's who you are. But it will be nicer for the body if it has less screwed up patterning.
Yes.
But it's not even nicer for the body, there's nobody. But it's nicer in Storyland if the body is more not having such difficult conditioning. But if that's what's happening, that's what's happening. But liberation is the movement from that being you to boundlessness. And then the body still has its dynamics.
Then it sounds like it's possible to carry these difficulties.
Well, the question is who's been carrying them? Whose do they belong to? Like we wouldn't ever think of correcting the growth of a tree. If a tree had we'd think of breeding a new tree. Like if it had defaults in its growth, we'd think about breeding a new tree. But we see that, we'd cut it down actually. Terrible analogy. Screw that one. Okay, screw the tree.
The sun.
The sun?
Yeah, we can't correct the sun.
Yeah, we got to this once before. I've done this with people before. I've realised all of the analogies don't work except when I get to the sun. About correcting the sun. But the question is who are you? Is the body the experiencer? We always think that the body's the experiencer. I'm the experiencer. And that it's about, that liberation is about that body waking up, that person waking up. But actually, all of this is happening in stillness, all of this is happening in boundless, and it's a movement of energy. Not really a movement of energy, because there can't be that, but it seems to be a movement from feeling you are that person to boundlessness, and then that person carries on arising and disappearing in this. But the body was never the source. The body was an experience. But it got so sucked into the body, it felt like the body was the experiencer. Somebody was the experiencer. And the body, and you as somebody had traumas from a childhood. And that was the problem. This body still has trauma. It seems there seemed to be a big change when a big lessening of that trauma, but it still has trauma. Still gets the heart going fast when the aeroplane takes off. There must be more trauma than that. Thank you. I do the aeroplane so often.
Big trucks.
Big trucks. Ah, yes. I got flattened by a truck on the motorway. So now I'm very aggressive to big trucks. So if a big truck puts the indicator on when I'm next to it, I'm like, toot toot, wanker! Toot toot! And so I remember somebody being like, well, you got really lost in the moment then. And I was like, that was Ludwig. I was like,
Lost in the wanker moment.
yeah. But there's many others, but I'm just forgetting them now. You know, in relationships, I'm not the perfect girlfriend, you know. I still have my ways of being and doing the normal thing that all humans do. Still trying to think of one there, but this will be like, I've got one!
Snoop.
Oh yeah, Snoop. I've read Paul's, my boyfriend, emails before. All those things. I've distrusted him. I've questioned him. I don't think that's true. All those normal things that carry on. But it's an energetic shift. It's not the character. It's not about the character. The character, those things tend to get more even, but not all the time. And they tend to undo themselves. But then you'll get new ones. You'll be in a car accident, or your partner will run off with a neighbour, and then there will be an association with that in the future. That's the way it goes in the body land. Your freedom is the movement of energy and who's experiencing the body. You aren't the body. You are the body as in you're everything, but you're not limited to the body. Who knows what the character's doing?
Well, I mean, there's an experience of distress or whatever, and that's felt.
Yeah, but then then the energy goes in, that's who I am. I'm distressed. I'm the snoop. I'm the abuser or the abused. But that's happening, and I'm not meaning to deny it, like to deny dynamics to people, but it's never you that's experiencing it. You, the experiencer, is absolute stillness, boundlessness. And everything is experiencing itself, and the character is part of the experience. I don't even know what I mean when I say character, that blows my mind, but we'll just go with it in limited language.
So is this dissolving of the character, is that just a random occurrence?
Well, isn't everything a random occurrence?
Yeah.
So why would that one be different?
True.
It's just that the mind wants to look for it, to see if it can manipulate a path of things. It never was the actor, the creator. The person was never the creator. The person was a creation. You never did your life. Ever. You felt like you did your life. You're never going to do your life. Who experiences the character? I know it's so frustrating for that one that feels like it's in the movement. I did the character. I'm choosing. Who experiences that? And then the character still has its crazy dynamics. You'll never see an enlightened person. You'll never be able to tell. Yes?
From my limited understanding of what's going on right now, if we are the stillness,
Yeah.
right? And there's distress going on out there,
Yeah.
and we think that we're experiencing the distress, so now I am distressed.
Yeah.
I like what you said that. So then who is feeling distress?
That's the most important question, but this isn't something I can answer for you.
Yeah.
I can keep pointing back. I'm not even pointing back, there's no back and front, but who is experiencing? We've always felt like we're the body and that's who's experiencing. But in the dream at night, I think this is the sweetest analogy. Who experiences the dream? Is it the dream character in which you see the dream through? Who hears in the dream? Who sees in the dream? Who feels in the dream at night? Is there anybody actually listening to anything? It's exactly the same here, but in this world, like in the dream at night actually, this energy comes up saying, me, this is who's experiencing it. But that's not the reality at all. Everything is experiencing, and this is the total love, to see that everything is experiencing. So the sound of Lisa's voice is the experiencer. Okay, that's a far jump. The sound, the appearance of this sound is it. It's not like it's the experience of the appearance of the sound, but by the fact the sound appearing, there is experience. But it's not that you somewhere experience it. So the sight of this room, it's so beautiful, this part. So the appearance of this body, that's where you are. The appearance of these colours, even the appearance of all the thought and the contracted self, is an expression of you. But the separate self always reflects back and says, I experience it. I'm the experiencer. And this is where it gets so screwed up, because then it feels like you're the liar or the cheater. That's another thing that Lisa's done. I'm one of those dirty, pervy gurus.
Aren't they all really?
Oh, I know. It's because everything's so sexual.
Yeah.
I don't know where you. Everything's so sexual because it's so intimate. Not intimate as a person, but you are there in it all.
the contraction is gone, isn't it?
I don't even know what that means anymore. I could say yes or no.
I know what it means.
See?
Unfortunately, that the contraction is here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, that's a lie that the contraction's there, because where is the contraction? But everywhere. It can't be there. It cannot be there. I know it feels that way and it seems that way, but actually everything's contracting. But where is that?
It feels like a center around which everything happens.
Yeah. But actually, in a way, you could say everything's contracted, because really, it's an added imagination that there's something out there not contracted.
I don't understand what you mean everything's contracted.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird. It's like there's nothing outside of this. So if it feels like the center is in here, you're already requiring a quick imagination or dynamic that's saying there's actually an out there. It's like there really can't be a contraction, even though it really feels like that. That contraction is happening everywhere. It's happening as close to this sound. It's happening in this sound. I know. It's experiential. That contraction is in this sound. It's everywhere. It feels like you are contracted in there. But how do you know yourself? But by the appearances of everything, of what is.
Well, the only thing I can tell, there were momentary things here when whatever was happening inside this body and whatever was happening outside, there was no difference.
Yeah.
The heart beating or somebody coughing or lifting a coffee cup or chair moving or sirens going off outside was the same exact thing.
Yeah, and when the contraction's there, it feels like you're the experience.
It feels like I'm living inside this skin.
Body, yeah.
You know, and sometimes even I can look down on my feet and it feels like I'm, that's not my feet, but yet there's a center still here.
Yeah.
Same like this thing's moving around this center.
Yeah. But that's how it feels. But ultimately, there's never a center. But it feels like that when it's there.
Yeah.
It gives the experience.
Yeah.
Just like it gives the experience that there's gravity here, that your feet is, that there's like a gravity. There's really no gravity, but it feels like that. Like that there's gravity at the bottom of your feet, or that you're actually standing upright. It's not like that at all. That was just a bit of a throw-in, forget I said. What, Lisa? I find Paul's money all the time. That's my thing. He hides his money and I find it like that.
So is that how it is? I have to say for you, is that how it is that whatever's going on inside the body or whatever's going on outside of it is the same thing?
Yes. I can't even tell the difference anymore. I can't even... It even gets as confusing when you try to reflect on it as who's snooping. I know in the sentence we say it's Lisa that's snooping, but then I know that sounds like crazy talk, but then I can't even.
Snooping is happening.
I don't know, but it's things like questions that get me, like somebody was asking me who needs the audience, who needs the toilet, you or the audience, or who needs the break. I didn't know what was the difference. And then the answer will come up eventually, the audience. And then that's so confusing.
So this is more of a challenge to function in a practical society?
No, because it was never you functioning in the first place.
But, I mean, as you're saying, there's a...
Well, yes, sometimes people do have problems functioning, and this body did have a little bit, but it was never you functioning in the first place, so it's not then that you have to deal with it not functioning. But, yeah, some bodies go a little bit haywire.
But, I mean, people talk about separate self and all these things. But there's a more specific goal that people go for. And
More of a what, sorry?
A specific goal, I mean...
Specific goal?
Yeah, I mean, the state that you are in, that state...
I don't know what I'm in.
Okay.
I don't even know who I am that's in that. That's confusing.
What I mean to say is, would ambition still carry on as desperately as it would have?
The body will always move towards surviving. I don't know what is encompassed, like what ambition means in that. But the body's always going to move towards pleasurable environment. It's not going to move towards living in a pile of poo. Could do. It depends on the country you're in, but that just came. But it's more than likely going to move towards comfort and pleasure. But it's all dependent on particular body-mind mechanisms. So these questions of outcome are really different. Like what still arises in each body, you never know. But the body's always going to move towards pleasure. It's not going to be. It's not going to sit and eat soil when it could potentially eat a pizza. But it was never you that moved towards it towards ambition in the first place. You thought that you were ambitious. You thought that you moved the body, and then it's who does all this? Who's the experiencer? Who created that urge of ambition? You thought it was you in time. You thought you had ambition. You thought you could see yourself. But that was an experience. It was never the experiencer. Who you are is what is. I'm saying stillness because it's just, hello. Hi. Oh, we've been losing people. So that very sound of humming now is how you know yourself. But I don't mean you as any quality. I mean that's what is the sound of the humming. The person interferes and says, I am hearing the humming. I'm experiencing the humming. But it's the actual humming in which the experience is.
So on the question to that, some people say the feeling of separateness that is created is because of the structure of language, I and you.
Well, the ultimate answer is it's because that's what life wanted to experience. Nothing's ever because of the flow. But in the apparent flow, it seems like it required an intelligent brain for this to happen. It doesn't seem to be happening in my dog. She doesn't seem to be suffering, even though she's a fucked up body-mind mechanism that's from Thailand and slightly aggressive. And I just got another text today saying she's bitten another dog, which will cost me a fortune again. What could she possibly be but what is happening? The mouth around the other dog's neck, the taste of the blood, the sight, the light, but for nobody, there's just that happening. That's what she is. There's not even a her that is that. That is just it.
Does that mean there's no accountability? I mean, how do we reconcile that with...
There seems to be accountability in the fact that I'm going to have to pay $100 now, $200 or however much it is. If we see that as accountability, in the sense of, was the money ever mine, and da da da, we could get really abstract. But then whose accountability is it? So in the world of things, like that story I told about Guna after the liberation, then the society stoned him. So in the flow of things there's accountability, in the sense of one thing leads to another, but who's responsible? And that's the most profound question that will ever be asked. Who's responsible? Who creates the urges and the choice? This is absolute forgiveness, but not forgiveness as an action. When it's truly seen, then this is happening and not an independent person's fault. It's huge.
What would be responsibility for? What's wrong with anything?
In the flow of things, there seems to be wrong and right in the human character world, but yeah, what could we ever define as better? We have to find a start and a stop, which is impossible. But the main point is who's responsible? It's quite radical, not even quite. It's shocking that it's nothing to do with the conditioning and the genetics of the body-mind mechanism. That's shocking, because we've been taught so always that it's to do with the person.
Lisa,
Yeah.
when you're snooping,
Yeah.
or doing whatever activity it is there a part of you that is aware of that the character Lisa...
No, normally only in conversation. Or the thought might come up, but no, it's just happening, just like now. The same thing that's happening now, the speaking. But the thought might appear, he's going to catch you. You're like, you've got to get it quick.
Is there a moment that we're like, I'm totally snooping right now?
Is there a moment where I feel bad?
Or just like, maybe, or maybe not bad, but just,
No.
I'm going through his things.
No. And I found some great things. Dildo this big. I was shocked.
Wow.
I'm not joking. It's big.
It's big.
He's going to kill me because it's being recorded. He never watches it. He's a businessman.
Maybe you can edit that part out.
No, but I love challenging him.
So it's just happening.
It's just happening, and even if there's guilt or any of those emotions, but who is even snooping? I know it sounds like not the question. The question is like, why is she doing it? She should fix that. The question is who is even snooping? I know that sounds like the biggest get out thing, but this is an absolute free fall into being an absolute fuck up. But for nobody, it's like you don't even know why or what. It's just the impulses that are arising, and even if there's judgment of the impulses, the freedom comes, I assure you, even though it's so hard for a person to hear that, is in the movement from that being you to everything. And you can be snooping, you can be angry, you can be jealous, but none of it's yours. But that sounds like a get-out clause, like a disassociation. It's not quite like that. It's that it's everything. and it's so intimate. And the first time that's really when the awakening happens, and then there's anger, and it's for no one. It's a shock, because you always thought the anger was the problem. If you know, you always thought that the anger or the rage or something in the flow was the problem. But this isn't acceptable intellectually, but experientially, as this becomes more and more obvious, it's so clear that it's never to do with what's happening in the flow. You don't want a peaceful life, assure me. It's only the person that wants the peaceful life. Aliveness wants whatever is appearing, because it's appearing. Or whatever you call it.
And I guess that's what you mean by love, right?
Love.
That's love.
Actually, what I mean by love is the fact that you are found in everything that appears, not in the experiencer. So it's like not you in all the total. It's like total acceptance, but not somebody's acceptance of whatever's appearing, and the fact you know yourself by anything that appears. Not you know yourself as in a profound, like a intellectual thought. I mean, you know yourself because without appearances, that's how this happens. I can't quite get there, but without the chair, without the floor, without the leg, without all the sensations and emotions, you don't know yourself. There's not this. That's a struggle to get to. It's so hard to put into words, that bit, and that's what I mean by the love. In all its fullness. And you won't find any freedom in trying to look for perfection in the character. And animals are a great reflection of this. My dog is such a monkey, especially with other dogs. She's such a bully. I'm laughing, but she's mean sometimes. But to her, it's all happening in freedom. You know, she would quite happily kill my mother's dog if we let her. My mother's dog's like this 15-year-old sweet little dog with these big eyes, and she's called Muttley. And to Khaleesi, this dog just takes food that she could have. And it's not even an intellectual thing, it's just like she wants that dog out of the way so she can have all the food. But it's happening in absolute boundlessness. There's no binding to that. That's not going to happen in the human world, because the human's got the ability to comprehend that someone will starve and might do though. Well, it does do.
So things like jealousy can still arise even though there's no attachment to the character?
Yeah. There's no getting out of anything.
It's just interesting though, because when you're asked about those things, most people would be happy to talk a lot about what they get upset about or about their quirks or whatever, and you're struggling to even, you know that they're there, but when asked what they are, you're like, I don't know. I think you said something about the airplane and your heartbeat, and then you said, that's a lame one.
Yeah.
And I know there are others, and then someone else had to point out the snooping.
Oh, yeah.
It's like there's just no real.
And then you have to say jealousy before it. But then even in saying that, I'm limiting my language. I'm not even sure whose jealousy it is, and I'm not even sure it's jealousy. It's just a label when other bodies bring it up. It's to my dog, she's not angry. She's not a killer. She's not aggressive. It's just that we have this language which also describes things.
If love exists, does hate exist? And how do you reconcile?
Hate only exists in separation. And the way I define hate is the separate person which is claiming to be separate and looks at things for its completion. And this is when hate really exists. You have taken away my happiness. You've taken away my oneness. And people, that's hate, is separation.
Oh, man.
Huh? Oh, man, because that's... But there's great things about separation as well.
I love my hates.
Yeah, it doesn't mean to sound so negative. But there's beautiful parts about separation, but that's where the hate and love exist. Then there's this ultimate love. Which doesn't have an opposite.
I can't help but feel, how could jealousy exist if there's just love? I just can't.
Because you're looking at it as a personal thing.
Yeah.
And you're wanting it, you want it to be a freedom of painful things that have happened. So you want it to be perfect relationships. Watch the animals.
I just know that when I'm feeling doesn't make sense. I was going to say when I'm feeling really good about myself, when I'm okay with myself, there's no jealousy. There can't be. Jealousy only arises when I'm not feeling good about myself.
But you're still seeing yourself as somebody that's experiencing.
Yeah.
Who you truly are is beingness, which is absolutely still and moving simultaneously. And then in that, this appears. And then whose jealousy is it? You don't even know whose jealousy it is.
Why does it arise? It just seems so futile. I don't know.
But you see jealousy as a bad thing.
I don't even think I'm seeing it as a bad thing. It just seems that I notice that that's when it arises. When there's a lack of self-confidence, or it just seems to arise. Yeah.
But that's not... that's very logical. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not the way it is. Watch the animals. Watch it. Do you have a dog or a cat?
Yeah, dogs.
Dogs. And they display that.
They do, yeah. And I always
big time.
Yeah.
They...
But I always think, it can't really be jealousy. It's just them wanting attention and fighting for attention.
Jealousy is a really lame... what is
just a word.
Jealousy? But
yeah.
My dog won't let other dogs in the house. She's so possessive of me.
Same here, yeah. Yeah. Huh.
I'm like that with Paul. No other woman. No, I'm joking. I like that one.
Did Lisa die?
Huh?
Did Lisa die?
That just touches nothing. Rephrase it.
Is liberation same as that?
No, nothing. Touches nothing.
What do you mean?
It just nothing comes to that. Just rephrase it a little bit.
What happened to Lisa?
It didn't happen to Lisa. I just can't. It didn't happen to Lisa, and I don't. Lisa's a character that comes and goes in this. But Lisa, this didn't happen to Lisa. Who's speaking to you now isn't Lisa. Who I am isn't Lisa. The person comes and goes when it's relevant. In this language, the person appears when we talk about Paul or Holland, but it's not the experiencer. Who I am is this. Who I am is the itching. Who I am is the sight of your face. That's who I truly am. Then the character comes and goes in this.
Is the character and the person the same?
I don't know. What's the person? The separation?
Yeah.
No.
The person
no,
attraction doesn't come back.
No. I would say the person is the character, but the contraction, okay, so that's a juicy one. But that is still very confusing. Because there's never a contraction in the first place. It's just not as fine line as you're looking at it and hearing it. But it doesn't matter, Joey. Fuck me being liberated, because I don't even exist. The only thing that's important is stillness, that's looking. Emptiness, that is. It's not even looking, it's found in everything. That's the only thing. Fuck whether Lisa is or not. It's too confusing. Who's hearing the sounds of her voice? Who's seeing the image?
You want me to ask that question?
Oh no, not necessarily. Unless the urge comes.
Can you say more about there was never a contraction in the first place?
Well, there's never anybody but experiencing this boundlessness. It's not even that boundlessness experiences this, it is everything, and by the appearance of everything, it appears. So there's never even a contraction. Even the contraction is absolute boundlessness. It's everywhere. It's never even like that. It's never even happening in there. It gives the appearance like that. It gives the appearance like there's something in here experiencing. But where is that? It feels like it's here. But you only know it's there by the idea of out there. It's all in a dream world. Actually, that contraction is everywhere. It doesn't even exist, but it feels like it does when it's there. Like you are looking.
No, it really resonated when you said to him, you think nothing else is contracted when there's a contraction. Like that assumption is what causes that suffering.
Yeah. That contraction is so big, that contraction. It's boundless.
But why say the contraction never existed? Is same as saying the cup never existed?
I'm not sure, but about the cup, but about what I mean in comparison to the cup. But the reason they never exist is because where is it? Who's looking now? Who's hearing me? Who's contracted? There is boundlessness always. The mind the person keeps telling the story I'm experiencing. Who experiences that? That is another experience that's located nowhere. But this is so energetical, it's really not logical. But you can hear it, and I know you can, because everyone that I've been speaking to here is listening with the mind. There's not anyone. As stillness, you know this, but not intellectually. This begins to... It's so undescribable. This hugeness.
So the way I could relate to what you're saying is maybe hypothetically with a person that's born blind or deaf.
Yeah.
Where they haven't been as exposed or corrupted sensorially with visual, with what they see or what they hear, so that to me they might seem more liberated in the sense that they're more connected to the whole. How does that have any resonation?
Maybe by having that lack of sense, but maybe not. I sometimes think that people with learning difficulties, autism, it was really sweet. I haven't been recorded lately, so I've been... Sometimes when I'm recording, I have to be limited with the stories of other people. There's this guy that I met recently that had autism, And he was telling me that it's Paul's nephew or something, and he was saying that he doesn't understand what Paul talks about because it's too complicated, and that his parents understand it. And it was so funny from my perspective because I felt like he knew more, way more, and so the parents were like, yes. And it's like as if he, of course intellectually he doesn't get it, but there's just so much less identity there. Or a sense of who he is. And he said to me, you might not have realised, Lisa, but I'm not very intelligent. He's so cute.
So is there no suffering even if there is disease in the body and there's constant pain? Say someone that's going through just in pain constantly.
Depends what you label suffering as. That will be great pain, but it will be nobody's pain, and that's the freedom.
Okay.
Not the appearance of, say, if I was seeing these incredibly painful when it's around the face, but so say if there's a huge toothache or abscess or something, so that's insane pain, but the freedom is it's not going to not be pain. In one way it is because of pain is just a label, but in the sensation it's uncomfortable, but it's nobody's, and that's always the freedom.
So there's still suffering, it's just for no one?
Depends how you label suffering. I tend to label suffering as it for someone, but it doesn't matter really, it's just a word. So you could say the suffering, or if you use suffering as the idea that that's when somebody thinks they're experiencing life, I tend to say use that for suffering.
So the freedom is not from the pain is still there.
Just like the jealousy or anger or whatever other emotions we tend to think are the problem.
Lisa, what about awareness? So
there's no awareness.
Okay.
But sometimes when I'm speaking to people, I use it. I don't use awareness actually, because I know that's even more confusing than consciousness. I tend to use consciousness, but there is none.
Well, I know it's just a word.
No, but I don't even mean that like existentially. I mean as in, you don't know yourself because something's conscious of all these things. You know yourself because of all these things.
Without the manifest, there wouldn't be an unmanifest.
Yeah, and it's not about consciousness. Consciousness is, I don't know what consciousness is. It's about the appearance, not the conscious of. That's really confusing. We could just say there's consciousness, and then everything's consciousness. That's more comprehensible. If you just say that there's consciousness and then everything's consciousness, then that kind of is okay.
Right. No point.
But there's nobody conscious.
Right. So.
And there's nothing to be conscious of. The very act of the appearance is it.
Right. Now, using those words, is consciousness self-conscious? Even though there's nothing to be.
What consciousness? Although I'm going to call it something else now, beingness or aliveness or emptiness or stillness. What it does is it creates self-awareness in the character. It creates, but it's not. It creates these things.
Yeah,
so there's nobody that's self-aware, but it creates, the ability for the dolphin to recognize itself in the mirror, or the chimpanzee or the human. But it's not self-aware. There's not somebody self-aware in the body. It creates all these things. So it creates a body that seemingly can register that. This is my body. And look in the mirror and do makeup. But it's not self-aware. It has no qualities, yet is everything.
It has no qualities. I get that.
No, it's everything, and yet it's everything. It creates everything, but it's not self-aware. But it creates that appearance, that dance. Just like in a dream at night, creates all possibilities in the dream at night. Being aware that you're being chased by, that the body's being chased by a dinosaur. But it's nobody's self-awareness. Belongs to no one, and it dies with the dream.
Yeah, I don't mean the character self-awareness. I mean that.
Has no self-awareness. Only in the appearance of everything, but that's not self-awareness.
But even the emptiness, isn't there the awareness of emptiness?
Who? How?
There is no
who. It's just the direct experience of this. And it knows itself by appearance, but it's not self-aware, and it doesn't know itself intellectually. It's just this. It's this. So intimate. The sounds of these words. There's not somebody, in the direct experience, there's not someone conscious of these words. There is words. Without the label, even the label, doesn't matter. Look, the painting, there is painting. And this took no effort by anybody. Only in the apparent dream. Perch put it all here. So that's the question, is who is self-aware? And that doesn't mean that the character doesn't feel shy or doesn't get embarrassed when it does a whole hour talk with the flies open, which I did in front of 60 people the other day. It was like, ah! Then when I brought it up, no one laughed. It's like, well, makes it worse. So embarrassment arises, but for who? I know it says it's such a pain in the ass question. For who? Fuck off, Lisa.
Lisa, I might be too tired for this to make sense, but like you said, it wouldn't know itself without the appearance or something like that. And even when it's knowing itself, it's kind of not knowing itself at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like the appearance. It's almost indirect. It knows itself, but it can't really see itself.
Yeah, but this isn't a real question. You're not really asking me a question.
What am I asking you?
You want me to tell you?
For validation or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might want to.
I'm proud.
Oh. But it's so perfect, that it's so perfect, even looking for validation or looking for love or wanting to be right or not be right, all of it is so perfect in its appearance. It's really not a criticism, but I can't answer a non-question.
Well, it's kind of like, tell me if this makes it any different.
No. Trust me.
Clarification? No?
It's just so, no, I'm sorry. I don't even know how I know. It's not even me.
I guess I have to quit then. I don't know if I'm allowed to rephrase it, so I'll just quit.
I have a question. If all there is beingness,
yeah,
and no separation,
yeah.
Let's say, okay, beingness awakens seemingly through a body. So why is it then there's still appearances of other bodies that are unawakened?
No, but that's it. That's the beautiful part, is you really don't know who you are anymore. So it's like, when it's not like that. You are all of the bodies. I'm that very sound and that very look.
But then there's still other bodies seemingly looking for awakening.
No, everything's looking. Well, seemingly in the story they're asking questions, and seemingly there's that game going on, but in this instant, which it's always about this, I am that very sound. I am the ear, the side of the face, the black colour of the jumper.
emotions stand in all this?
Emotions are another part of it, but they're not the problem. Difficult emotions or good emotions, they're part of it, and it often happens that when it's no longer taken personally, I've noticed that emotions sometimes there's more pleasure released, but not all the time. So sometimes people, when they're having awakenings, they think that the bliss is it, but it's just chemicals that are, it's emotions that, I don't even know if bliss is an emotion, but it's sensations that are coming and going. Emotions will always be in movement and changing. It's whose emotions are they? Who's experiencing the emotions? But it does tend to, a lot of the times, when there's that change, a lot of the times the body evens out, I've noticed, or there's lots of pleasure that arises in the body, and when then people are talking about it, or they've had these experiences, they think that that's how it'll be. They think, so pleasurable, I need pleasurable emotions to experience this, but it's just a side effect. So when there's an awakening, it often comes with bliss or great sensation of heart chakra love or something. But that's a side effect.
Lisa, do you experience that your heart is open all the time?
I don't know what that means. I experience, it's not even I experience, but this is love. But the personal love and things comes and goes. Like there's bodies which this one's more attracted to, and looking at Khaleesi, it's like such pleasurable sensations looking at Khaleesi and the boyfriend, and so that comes and goes, but this is love by the very intimacy of everything.
I guess that's what I was asking, like this is love, and I'm just walking around in love, because that's all there is.
And if that's what you mean, then do I experience it? Oh. I don't know about that.
But then murder is love too.
Huh?
But then murder is it too.
The murder's it too. The murder is it
Murder
too.
is love.
Everything.
A knife slicing through somebody's liver.
Yeah.
Also.
And eating a fish or a cow or...
Do we still have any attachments? Because I know in the me world, attachments usually are there's a lot of suffering.
It's so hard talking about Lisa's experience. I don't know if you've noticed.
Oh.
This is where I begin to be like, well, I don't know what you mean by that, but I don't want in any way for you guys to have a grand idea of this body. But I certainly prefer things over other things.
How about
this body?
In dealing with like family and people that, you do have an emotional bond, or does, like I have an emotional bond with my family, and for most people that do still have a me, like a lot of people, live for their families and for love, for these types of emotions. Is that still felt your experience?
So what you're asking me isn't about my experience. What you're asking me is it okay if I don't experience these things? Or is it okay if I still experience these things?
I guess my question is, do you still experience these things?
You're so sweet. It's not the question actually, so it then feels funny answering it. I'm not even thinking about Lisa now. I'm trying to feel the answer that's really wanted, which is really weird that So basically, the body is always, if you have a child, that body is going to look after that child more than likely. It'll be the same amount of percentage as the people that are identified or non-identified. It's part of what happens when the body's there. If it has a baby, it's going to be bonded to the baby or to the mother or to the father. And there will be importance in bringing this, in making sure that child survives. And the same with the parents. That's the way it goes in the world of humans. So if somebody threatens your child, you would kill them to make sure your child survives. If that's what you mean by attachments, then that will always survive. The same with your parents. You will kill for your parents, but it's not you. It's a functioning that happens. Just like my dog will. I've seen my dog try to kill for me. This dog jumped on me, and my dog's not particularly big, and she was like, "Down!" from the distance. And the dog wasn't even attacking me, it just jumped on me. And she was like, "Down, down, boom!" And she just floored this other dog. It was so instinctual. The same for your lover. This is part of the way it goes, just like two swans. You know, often if one swan dies, the other swan dies. If one swan's attacked, the other swan will attack. I don't know if that's what you mean by attachment. Your freedom comes when it's seen that that's not you. And yet that's you because it's everything. But you aren't found in that character, in that description.
I can't seem to reconcile this sort of problem. You keep talking about, animals and sort of the morality of animals, let's call it, as far as, your dog killing or whatever, and then, but I mean, if I rape someone,
yeah,
but then that just happened? That just
no,
was?
the body will be punished. But that's not who you are.
But why should it be punished?
Because that's the way the flow things go.
If he gets caught.
Yeah, see Joey over here, I know. Joey's an anarchist. He's a nihilist and he's an anarchist.
But
is that what this is, though? Is that what non-duality leads us to? And how, if that's not true, how do we reconcile that?
Which bit?
I mean, the idea that, Joey would say, if you can get away with killing somebody, well, then it's fine, I think. Is that
but no.
That's not what I said at all.
No, that's not what we're saying. Because if this body kills, this body in the apparent flow of things will have punishment. That's just the way it goes. There's no punishment, but it will get put in prison or there will be in the term of the flow of things. But what I'm trying to point to is you aren't the body. The experiencer isn't the body. The human walk around in a world where they think they are the experiencer, and who they are is something moving in time. So you think the experiencer is somebody that came into this room and somebody that leaves this room. The question is, who are you? It's not really about morality or responsibility. It's seeing that who's looking now, who's experiencing now. It's not the character. This is a profound difference, but it's confusing because it's felt like your whole life you were always something moving in time. But how can something that's moving in time be the experiencer? How can something that's an experience be the experiencer? But we've always thought the experience is the experiencer. How can something moving be the experiencer? Then we'll begin to really question morality. After that's been seen, then we can talk about it. It's a really hopeless thing, morality, to try and talk about. Wow.
You mentioned earlier your mother in a side conversation. What
My mother?
Your mother.
Did I?
Briefly about the dogs.
Oh yeah, my mother's dogger.
What will the Lisa that I'm seeing in front of me experience, or I hate to use the word emotion or the attachment, but what happens when your mother dies? What will
There'll be a whole series of different emotions. But those emotions aren't me. They
Did you
are
say
me.
they are not you?
No, they're not me.
You.
They're not me. Who I am is stillness. They appear in stillness, so they're me in that sense, that they're everything. But that's not my container. But there'll be a whole flow of emotions. So that's the difference. But in the character world, and it gets confusing because sometimes me, you use me for the character, but who I truly am is this stillness that's directly here.
The Lisa character will go through
A whole array
flow
of emotions, yeah.
But the Lisa that's not the Lisa, there won't be.
It's always perfectly still, but that perfect stillness is everything, so it's all those emotions as well. But also the dying mother. So it's really not meaning to sound like a denial of the character or emotions or feelings. No, I'm going over time anyway. It's 4:45. Thank you very much. It was really lovely speaking with you all. Thanks, Perch.
Thank you.
Thank you for